I'm starting today's episode by letting you know there is nothing wrong with your podcast platform. In a few minutes, it might sound like I'm talking at 2x speed. I am not. I'm Dave Schwartz, Iowa Dave on Instagram, and for as long as I've been able to speak, I've been a fast talker when I get excited. That's why I talk so fast throughout this episode, because I was so excited to talk to both of my guests. First, we have the Emperor of Sports Cards Live and the new Sports Cards Live auctions, Jeremy Lee.
I walk in there, I feel like, oh, here we are, we're back again, and now I just want to cover as much square footage as I can.
After that, we welcome in Mr. The Hobby is the People himself, John Newman.
The show is kind of what you make it. Kind of sort of have a game plan, but at the end of the day, right, what do we travel and what do we go to these events for? To have fun, to create memories, and that's the bottom line.
I've brought Jeremy and John together in one episode to create what I hope is the ultimate primer for the ultimate event of this hobby, the National. Recently, 7 National first-timers took part in a Q&A on my website, hobbycontent.com. John and Jeremy today will be answering their questions and mine, and sometimes words are going to fly out of my mouth at warp speed. I hope you'll enjoy this even if you're not going to the National. Jeremy and John have combined to attend more than 20, and they're here to share their expertise on this episode of The Shallow End. Jeremy, one of the things that I noticed in the replies from the first-time attendees, and I'm a first-time attendee, I didn't put my own, I will be anyway, I didn't put my own thoughts in there. Perhaps I will at some point. But one of the things they consistently said in talking about their anticipation of the event is that they don't expect to actually find anything that they're looking for. Meaning they've heard the advice, make the list, go in, especially the rare cards, make your top 10 list. And they've made those lists, but they don't necessarily think it's going to happen. It's more, let's meet people, let's socialize people they've talked to online now for 6 months, for a year, for 2 years. It's a chance to finally meet someone, but they know that it might not be or they think it might not be realistic to find that needle in a haystack. What do you think about that?
There's been a long-standing saying about the National that if you are looking for something, you'll find it at the National. I've never subscribed to that, though, because that might have been true up until, the end of the 80s when there wasn't such a large assortment of cards. But you go through the 90s and now into what's been going on in the last 10 years with the proliferation of inserts and parallels and different sets. You can't find everything at the National, despite what some people might lead you to say. So I think that approach that your first timers are going into the show with, I think it's a very realistic approach, and I think it's a good one because now they're managing their expectations. If you think that if you have a list of 10 very rare cards, you may be lucky if you find half of them there, maybe even just 1 or 2. So I think it's I think that's the proper way to go in, just as in terms of mindset. Meet the people, see some friends you've made online. And whatever cards you find from that list is really going to be sort of like the icing on the cake as far as the show goes.
How about you? I mean, you're involved with TAG. You're so many other partnerships in the hobby. Do you personally get a chance to shop and look around and walk the floor?
Oh yeah, I mean, of course, that's probably my favorite thing to do there. The people are great, of course, but I love looking at hundreds of showcases filled with cards, and so yeah. Historically, I've always been able to walk around. This year will be a bit different. I will be more sort of tethered to the TAG booth, but I will be out walking the floor, looking through showcases and finding things or trying to find something that catches my eye.
I know that's what I'm most looking forward to. I mean, I'm excited to meet lots of people as well, but at the same time, I'm a museum person, and I'm approaching it as I'm going to get to see some things I don't get to see very often. So I think I'm going to split it 50-50. Excited to shake some hands, but also like to see some cool stuff.
Yeah.
All right. So Brandon at Sports Card Struggles, he wrote, while there are definitely shows that are closer to where he lives, most of them are lackluster, for lack of a better term. The ones that are within 1 hour of me are small and only happen once or twice a year, and they don't have anything that I'm looking for. How do you to respond to this idea? And certainly I have the same thought that Brandon does. We keep hearing how big the National is, but when you first walk through those doors and you're into the big room, is your breath still taken away? What's it like for you when you first walk in?
I mean, I've been to 14 nationals, so I know what to expect. So I don't have that oh my gosh. Now, when I do walk through the main doors of Chicago, I feel like this is where I want to be. I get this feeling of this is the Mecca for our hobby. And so while I'm no longer overwhelmed by the size of it, just because I'm used to it by now, I still walk in for the first time and I'm just, the excitement level is through the roof. I want to run and look in the showcases because I just know that, the best stuff or the key cards that I'm maybe interested in are going to be snapped up. So I walk in there, I feel like, oh, here we are, we're back again. And now I just want to cover as much square footage as I can.
I heard someone say, I forget who it was the other day, that if you get there early, when the doors open, you will see people physically running for certain areas. You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think oftentimes they're probably running for the grading area so that they can be early in line. Or there's giveaways. There's giveaways at the Topps booth, the Panini booth, the Upper Deck booth, the Leaf booth. People are running for giveaway, among other businesses set up there. People are running for the giveaways. They're running to beat the lines, and maybe even for the autograph pavilion to get in line early.
Yeah. Kevin, who is at nostalgia_card, said, for the reason that he's going for the first time, he says, I consumed so much content around the National the past 2 years or so that I became so interested in experiencing a show on that scale. There is a lot of content. And in fact, on hobbycontent.com, I started an archive of pages of people, of podcasts and social media feeds and YouTube pages, channels of just talking about the National. Is there any chance that it's being built up so much that it could not possibly meet what these expectations are? Or is it really, for lack of better words, that cool?
I mean, I don't think that's possible. I think it is that cool. And I think that the reason why you see so much content around it is because the show is that much fun. There's that much there. It's that big. Nothing compares to it in our hobby. So yeah, I think that if you are watching content on the National leading up to the National, all that's going to do is get you psyched and more excited for it. So I don't think you're going to be let down. I really don't.
Have you ever taken part with the autographs?
You know what? I haven't. I've never been an autograph getter at a card show, but I've walked by and peered into the area and seen the mayhem in there.
Yeah, I'm wobbling. I'm thinking about going in. I wasn't planning on it, and then I saw they added Kareem late. Now, I mean, man's a legend. MJS_sports cards. Mark was saying that he's curious about doing that. Should he do it? Because he doesn't want to waste his entire day, standing in line, for some grumpy someone who's going to shake his hand and then off he goes. But I guess that's something that Mark will just need to sort of figure out on his own. How useful is the map? They include the map with the table numbers. Have you found that to be a useful tool?
I've never used the map. I like to walk in and just kind of wander in whatever direction my feet and eyes take me. And I find often, Dave, that I will kind of it's not organized such that you can just, do a nice, up one row, down the next. It's staggered. There's different areas that are set up differently. So the map is probably very useful, especially if you're looking for certain vendors. But once you are in there, if you're there for the whole Wednesday through Sunday, or if you're only there for 3 days, whatever it is, after that first day, you'll have a good feel for how the show is set up. It's not that confusing where everything is. So I'm sure the map is helpful. But I don't want to say what anyone should do, but the way I approach it is, again, I want to be surprised. So I'll kind of just wander around, and then I'll think to myself, did I go to that area over there? Or did I miss some tables? And I'll kind of go back. And as I'm going back there, I'll look through showcases that I might have already looked at, but you're going to see new things every time because there's just so much there. So map's a good idea, I think, but I've never used it.
Yeah. We're talking about, kind of going through and seeing what's there. I think I was listening. What day is this? We're recording on a Tuesday. I think last Thursday or Friday, listened to a podcast and someone said, when you see something that you want, just grab it because it's not going to be there possibly when you return. I thought, okay. And then the immediate next one I listened to said, don't buy something the second that you walk in, make a note and then go back for it. So break the tie for us here.
I mean, I might have been the one that said the first thing because I'm a firm believer that, like I said a few minutes ago, if you walk into that show and you see a card that you really want, and it is a rare card. Now, I'm not talking about a Mike Trout Topps update or a Michael Jordan rookie. Don't rush for those. Connor McDavid Young Guns. There's absolutely no rush. But if you're looking for a rare card out of 10 from a recent year, even out of 25 or 50 or something out of 100 from the 90s, a certain vintage card that is beautiful for the grade that speaks to you, I can almost guarantee that card, might not be there even half an hour later. I've had it happen to me so many times, Dave, and I stopped doing it where I see a card, and I'll kind of make mental notes. All right, this card at this table under this sign, etc. I'll walk around for a couple hours. I think that's the one I want. I go back, it's long gone. The guy, I said, do you still have that Sidney Crosby? He's like, no, that sold about half an hour ago. I'm like, oh, darn it. And it's also happened to me setting up, not just at the National, but setting up at the Expo in Toronto. I will see a customer will come by my booth and they'll be like, all right, I'm going to keep that one in mind. I'm going to see what else is there. And just got here. I'm going to make my rounds, decide where I want to spend my money, and then I'll come back. Same guy comes back, 2 hours later. Hey, do you still have that Gretzky card? No, man, that sold an hour ago. Like that happens so many times. So I'm a firm believer. Listen, you have to do what you're comfortable with. And a lot of people don't want to go to the National on a 3-day or 5-day trip, or even 1 day, and walk in within 10 minutes, blow their budget. That kind of, well, what do I do for the rest of the day? So you have to consider that, but it depends how much you want that card that you see right away. And I give the advice all the time. Don't wait. If you see a card that you want, it's, you're taking a big chance it'll be gone quickly once you leave, especially if it's rare.
I guess that kind of goes to one's perspective. If you're going there maybe hoping to pick up a card, a couple of cards, but you also could enjoy the experience. You can enjoy all the other things that are going on, not necessarily the autographs, but just the meeting people and the giveaways. Maybe you do walk in and by happenstance, the first or second table that you're at happens to have it. But then you can prepare yourself to be okay with that because you've already got, sorry about that, because you've already have what it is that you want. But, the whole thing is not just about buying.
Well, exactly. I mean, it all depends on your personality and that, but if you go in, you see that card right away, you've got a $1,000 budget for the show, and that card is, almost $1,000 or $1,000, and you spend that money. But that card, will make your experience at the National worthwhile from a card acquisition perspective. Buy that card, don't look back, and now you're almost free to roam the show with no pressure to find anything. You've already got the card you want, and now you can just kind of do some scouting for other cards and get some phone numbers from vendors and hey, I really like this card. If you still have it at the end of the show, I'll send you a message, I'll email you, I'll send you a text. maybe you can follow up with that guy or gal and get that card, down the road, a month later, a couple weeks later, when you've got more spending money. So it's not a bad idea to, it's not the worst thing, I should say, if you spend your money right away and then you can spend the duration of your time at the show, again, just without that pressure and enjoying yourself, without even the pressure of feeling like you have to find something because you already did.
Sure. Say you do find it. That leads to something that Matthew at 1956 Tops Guy, that he wrote. He'll be attending for the first time. He was certainly not alone in this sentiment, but he sums it up nice and concisely. He said, I don't expect to do much buying because I think I get better cards at better prices online, eBay, Facebook, message boards, etc. Is it urban legend that all prices are jacked up at the National, or is it just like any place else where some prices are high and some prices are fine?
I believe that's urban legend. I believe that's just a lot of people that, love that just maybe haven't been as much, or they just like to, they like to spin that negative sort of that narrative about the National and everything. The truth is that there's all sorts of different people set up at the National. Some people will still probably be kind of married to the values of 2 years ago and a year and a half ago, and maybe they got in at the wrong time, at the peak, and they're not willing to let their cards go. But they're not going to sell any cards, so that's fine. Then you have the museum people. I don't want to say show off has a negative connotation, but the people who are there to exhibit their collection, and they will put high prices on it because they're not there to sell necessarily. They're to sell if they can get their number. And I don't hold that against them. A lot of people will say, well, don't put it out if you're going to ask a crazy price. Well, somebody might come along and pay that price. Somebody might value it as high as you do. If it's a liquid commodity type card, then you're just kind of flexing for no other reason. But if you're there to show off your pride and joy that you've built over years or decades, and maybe you don't even have prices on them, and somebody might say, how much for this? You say, well, you know what, my not for sale price is X, and meanwhile the actual price is half X, or the most recent comp is. So you will have people like that, but there are so many people that this is how they feed their families. They need to sell cards, so they're going to sell cards, and in order to do that, they're going to have to price competitively. So to say that you can find things cheaper online, yeah, you can, but different things, first of all, and you can find things cheaper at the show than you might online as well. So there's no general rule for this. You're going to find all scenarios.
Okay. One question that I really appreciated was, his name is Scott. It's at WCO Cards, and he's fairly new to the hobby. Just got back in November, so he's only a little more than a half of a year in. And he says he collects soccer. That's why he got into it. He likes soccer cards. But when he goes to his local shows, he says, local shows, I'm lucky to see a handful of soccer cards. I meet some good people, but local shows are a waste of time, and meaning in terms of hunting for what he wants. How is the diversity of what people are selling at National? I know Ken at Sports Card Lessons made it to the Toronto show for the first time, and not surprisingly, lots of hockey, some baseball, not much NFL. There are some shows, here in the States along the East Coast that are very heavy in vintage, but not in modern. Is everything at the National, or is it still heavy toward one area?
It's going to be heavy towards baseball because it's just there's so many baseball cards in the history of the hobby. But you will find everything there. If you're going there looking for soccer, you won't be disappointed. You're going there looking for wrestling cards, you're not going to be disappointed. If you're looking for F1, if you're looking for Pokemon, if you're looking anything, it's all there. Not every card in the world is there, but every genre is represented, and represented well. People, the hockey collectors always say there's not much hockey at the National, but there's always more than you think. There's always plenty there. It's just sort of watered down amongst all the baseball, basketball, football. I mean, those three are the most by far. And baseball, I mean, there are sections of the show or areas that are really vintage heavy, and it's just like 95% baseball, but everything is there. And there, again, it's so big. And this year it's bigger than ever. I think I forget how many square feet they added, but they added a significant amount of square footage to the show this year. So I can't even tell you, because it'll be my biggest show ever in a couple weeks. And but I just feel like it'll be, the same kind of ratios will just be extended out into these new areas. I would think. Maybe not though. Maybe it'll be more of the basketball, soccer will get a bit more share of the new square footage, because it'll likely be newer dealers, I would think.
Okay. How about safety and security? The Basketball Card podcast that was released just late last night, he took a few minutes to talk about the idea of cards are stolen. Every national cards are stolen with hundreds and hundreds, and I don't know how many hundreds of booths. Sure, it's going to happen. But what do you recommend, Jeremy? How can people keep their own stuff safe?
Well, if you're a vendor, I mean, you have to deal with security that way. Make sure your cards are in showcases, of course, under glass. That's important, and locked. And, you take precautions at night. You seal them up in a sentry bag or a body bag, as they're called. But for the regular attendee, I was actually talking to Adam from the Basketball Card podcast the other day, and he said, I haven't been since 2019. What do you any advice for me? And I said, bring a bottle or two of water. I said, shoes are of utmost importance, which people will tell you, like, don't wear fancy shoes. You need to wear soft cushion shoes. Extremely important for your body. Those floors are unforgiving, and they are long days if you're going to be in there. But from a security perspective, a lot of people, and this is an interesting one. A lot of people wear backpacks because they feel like, all right, it's on their back, but a backpack will end up hurting you if it's heavy over the course of the show. So I use a wheelie, just like an airport carry-on. I use one of those, and my hand does not come off the handle of that thing ever. So if someone is going to run up and snatch it from me, there's thousands of people in the show that are going to pounce on that guy, because, we're all kind of looking out for each other. I've seen instances at the National where all of a sudden you're standing there, and then 2 rows over, you hear this big kerfuffle, and there's all these people kind of rushing towards something, and they're chasing down somebody who's being chased because he stole cards off a table or from somebody. So the hobby will be there for you, especially if you're in the show. But people will have very valuable cards on their person, whether it's in a backpack, in a Zion case, or in a wheelie that they're pulling behind them. And I guess, theoretically, any of these things could get stolen. Obviously, don't put your stuff down anywhere and leave it unattended. That would be idiotic. There's going to be lots of people looking for opportunities to steal in this show. So just be mindful. Be mindful and keep your hands on your things at all times. If you have pockets, try and have buttons on them if you're keeping cash in your pockets. I would just be careful. Be careful.
Sure. You mentioned food and water. This is a dumb question. I could probably look this up in the fine print. I don't know. Are food and water allowed on the floor of the convention?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, yeah. You can buy food, water. You can buy alcohol on the show floor. They sell beer and stuff. But, you're going to pay, I believe you're going to pay through the nose for water. The food is not good. The food is just not good. I mean, it's all deep fried. It's listen, it might be tasty, but it's probably the unhealthiest food there is out there from outside of straight candy. So, but I always say, just bring water. You have to be hydrated. The days, it'll go by fast. You can walk in there at 10 a.m., 4 o'clock. You're like, I haven't gone to the bathroom once. I haven't had a sip of water once. I need to hydrate. So, and I don't, unless you want to pay convention prices for a bottle of water. I don't know what that is, $4 or $5, $6 a bottle. Bring your own. I mean, you get a bottle of water for $1 on your way there from some corner store. So, but yeah, water, food, granola bars, that kind of thing. Kind of good to have some snacks as well. But with the uprise of Uber Eats and that kind of thing, you can also just get food delivered there to you.
Yeah, and that all makes sense. And my question with it was, I'm thinking more from an etiquette point of view. I have not set up at a show. I don't know if I ever will, but I think I would be furious or nervous if somebody is walking up and they're chewing on a granola bar and it's dropping crumbs on my showcase, or they have an open bottle of water or a soda, right, which is sticky and carbonation can destroy things. Is there I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask anyway. Have people come up to your table in the past when you're selling and they're just drinking, eating stuff and spilling, and what is the etiquette with this?
Yeah, food not so much. I haven't really experienced that, but drinks for sure. I've been set up as a vendor and someone will put their coffee cup on my showcase, and I want to trust that people are going to be careful. So I don't go crazy about it, but I might say, hey, do you mind just putting that over a couple inches where there's some actual, don't put it on the showcase, put it on my table at least where there's some space between showcases. Now that still can be dangerous. So I'm kind of taking a leap of faith there. If you just want to have a clear mind, and someone puts a drink down or they're holding their coffee or their soda or their water over your showcase, just say, hey, thanks for looking, but would you mind just pull your cup back so it's not over the showcase. If you say, people are going to respond nicely, they're not going to, oh, sorry, they're not even thinking about it. So they're not, but this is important. I think the takeaway from this, Dave, is if you are a vendor, just be nice to these people. I don't think they're trying to damage your inventory, your goods, your cards. If you're an attendee and you do it and a vendor asks you nicely to pull it away, note it, say, oh, my bad, understood, pull it away, and then don't do it again for the rest of the week. But if a vendor says to you, get your effing coffee off, just walk away and don't deal with that, because that person's just in a bad mood. Probably not someone you want to engage with anyway or do business with, So yeah, that'd be my advice.
Okay. So just a couple more here. Austin at Carlson Cards says that my number one reason to go to the National over other shows is to connect with as many of my quote online friends as possible. It's crazy to me that I've talked with dozens of people for 2 years plus without having ever met them face to face. This is you said your 15th or so National. Is this still happening to you? Are you still meeting people for the first time when you go to Nationals, or is it more like a reunion for you?
I mean, as a content creator in the space, I'm meeting people for the first time every time I go to a show, because people come up and say, oh, hey, you're Jeremy from Sports Cards Live. Nice to meet you. I, listen to your show, watch your show. So I get to meet people because of that. If I wasn't a content creator, but was active on social media, I would assume it would be the same thing. Back to Adam Gray from Basketball Card Podcast and Fanatic, we were chatting the other day and I haven't seen him since the 2019 National. He goes, man, I'm looking forward to seeing you for the first time in 4 years. I'm like, Adam, I see you twice a month. We spend a lot of time together on a screen like this, but not in person. So yeah, I'm looking forward to a high five and a bro hug, but it's not it's a reunion of sorts with someone like that. But for people that you only comment on their Instagram posts, maybe you've done a podcast with them or seen them on podcasts, you're going to meet them in person for the first time. That's really how relationships, I believe, are truly forged, because once you've met someone in person, it takes that friendship to the next, I find, and not just in the hobby, but it takes it to the next level, right? And I haven't done internet dating for 15 years probably, but even then, think of it that way. If you ever did, you might talk to somebody, for a week or 2 weeks or a month online, but then when you meet in person, now you get to really understand the person better. So not just from a dating perspective, but from a hobby friend dating perspective, I guess. Yeah, it's gonna be amazing for someone like Austin who hasn't met any of these people for 2 years. You're gonna meet them. You're gonna have a meal with them, maybe have a drink with them, maybe go, leave the show, go grab a coffee. There's a There's a Starbucks in the lobby at the Chicago show. Maybe you go grab a Starbucks together. These little experiences are really what make the hobby all about the people. So yeah, I'm excited for people like Austin who are going to have this experience for the first time.
Yeah, I'm sort of half toying with the idea of wearing a name tag that just has my Instagram handle on it and walking around, and maybe somebody will recognize me from a conversation or something. That might be dorky, but I still might do it.
I don't not do it. A name tag might be something like people will actually look at it and think, well, that's maybe, oh, that's weird. Why is the guy wearing a name tag? Like, what company is he with or something? I think you're probably more recognizable by your Instagram logo, your icon, your ID in the yellow. If I were you and you wanted to let people know who you were, I would get a shirt made and just put your circular your Instagram logo on the front, the yellow one, Dave, which I think is it stands out when you're scrolling. Yours stands out because it's nice and bright yellow. I would get a shirt made with that. That way, people will definitely see it and oh, I recognize you. You're, and then instead of putting Dave, they'll recognize you from your logo, and then the conversation will be, hey, I follow you. What's your name again? And then you go from there.
Sure. So any final thing that I have not asked yet? Anything that if you were talking to someone who has not been there before that you would advise them to do or something to think about?
Take advantage of the experience, especially if you're traveling for it, and maybe you don't go to the National every year. Just take it in. Don't rush it, but at the same time, buy the card you love or you need when you see it is my advice. And I know a lot of people will give the opposite advice, but you can decide which one you want to take and how that works for you. We'll see at the end of the show. Enjoy the experience. Be open-minded. There might be people that you don't agree with everything they say online. There might be people that you do agree with everything they say online. When you meet them in person, they may not be who you thought they were, for better or for worse. The bad guy or the guy you don't like from their online persona, you might really like in person. The guy you really like their online persona, you might not like them in person. So be open-minded and just go in to have a good time, and try not to judge what anyone else is doing. A lot of people love to all the content creators and their camera crews. Who cares? They're doing their thing. You do yours. Don't let someone else's experience ruin yours. Just go in, enjoy it, take it in, and make the most of it.
Well, Jeremy, this has been great. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
Thanks to Jeremy Lee for jumping on. So much to take in there. So much great information. Be sure to check out Jeremy on Sports Cards Live and his new channel, Sports Cards Live Auctions. And now, we keep it rolling as we bring in my second guest, John Newman of Sports Card Nation, Card Menches, Hobby News Daily, and much more. So, John, one of the questions we've got here is it's at Sports Card Struggles, and he's looking forward to trying to figure out how many tables he can get. He wants to see as much as he can. He knows that his time is limited there. In the handful that you've been to, I know they've said that Chicago is going to be wider and bigger than they've ever had before, but like how congested or how claustrophobic does it feel when you're trying to make your way through that big room?
It's a tough question because it really depends what day you're there. If it's a Sunday, it's going to open up more than a Saturday or a Friday might be, Dave. So it depends on the day, but on average, it's pretty tight. Again, they've expanded their footprint for this year's. We don't know really what that means yet. It's sight unseen, so it's all we can speculate till there's no tomorrow. Chicago's usually everyone's favorite venue, so it's pretty packed. You got to kind of box out and to get in front of a showcase a little bit. If you're going for one day, it's going to be tough for anyone going for one day. It's going to be tough to get to every table, but if you're there for a few days and that's your game plan, it can be done for sure.
would imagine too, it depends a little bit on what you want to do. If you are just someone who can scan and you kind of know what you're looking for, you might be able to hightail it through. But if you are someone who likes to dig through the dollar boxes, you better go for more than a day or two.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, you definitely want to be there. I would say, to me, in my opinion, for the 2 cents that's worth, 3 days is sort of like the big for me. Like if I couldn't go for 3 days, I probably wouldn't even make the trip. I mean, again, speaking for only myself, I understand people's schedules might only allow them a day and life calls, and I get all that. So I'm not, not being derogatory in that sense, but for me, I would for me to make that trip, I got to be there at least 3 days, and I'm usually there 4 to 5 most years. So
Yeah. What would you recommend? I know in Atlantic City last year, I heard the Wi-Fi was to use it to say there even was Wi-Fi is an insult to Wi-Fi. But what should people do in case things go haywire again? What can they do to prepare to be able to research what they might be looking for if no one can get a signal?
so I go in, Dave, with like 5 or 6 cards I'm sort of looking for. Now that doesn't mean I'm going to purchase all 5 or all 6 of those, but if I could get a couple, two was kind of my goal out of that target 5 or 6. I already kind of in my mind, like, offline, so to speak, or before I get to the venue, I'm already kind of have what the comps or what these could be going for in my mind. So I don't necessarily have to pull out my phone and check. I'm not saying I never ever do it. That's not the case. I don't like to do that in front of a dealer or in front of a table. So even if I did that at the show, I'm more likely etiquette wise, kind of to go away from the table, do it, and maybe come back. What have you, whenever. But I try to do as much of that before I even step foot through the door. Um, and sort of be prepared for lack of, if there is a lack of Wi-Fi or that sort of thing.
Yeah. In was it last year or 2 years ago you got your Jackie right before National, right?
Uh, 2 years ago, yeah, it's not last year, but the year before that. Actually, about a year and a half ago. So it wasn't at the National.
Mhm.
I did just make the purchase. I made it online. Um, but I've tried to get that card at the National. You know, there is going to be on certain things, there might be a little sticker shock, Dave. Many dealers are traveling there. They have expenses, hotel, food, lodging, getting their stuff there. So expect, there's still deals to be had. I'm not trying to scare. People want to sell their stuff to have a great National as a dealer, but there's some that may be, you might have to, depending on the card, you may expect maybe a little bit higher than comps, but shop around, right? If you have the luxury of being there more than one day, like I usually am, what I like to do, Dave, is the first day I'm there is really just kind of browse and not really necessarily pull the trigger on a lot of transactions. I'm not saying I've never bought anything the first day. I have, but I tried to sort of shop around first. Now you can do that with a card that's maybe not super rare or rare, but if it's something where there's not a lot of copies, which is probably going to be an expensive card, and the price is right, you also shouldn't be afraid to pull the trigger. And that's where kind of doing that pre-research will come into play for you.
Right, and that's one of the things that you talked about on card the last episode of Card Mentions, which I thought was really just so helpful of researching what you can ahead of time. Now there are hundreds of tables and you can only do so much, but you can at least get an idea of what the cards are that you're looking for, what they're going for. Write some stuff down, keep the list. Jeremy Lee was saying, in terms of whether you buy right when you walk in versus shop around, is just like you said. If a card is sitting there and it's out of 5, that thing might be gone. Just grab it. But if
Yeah.
it's a card that I'm looking for there, which will be the 1959 Topps Bob Gibson, there's probably going to be 1,000 of those there. I can have some time to take a look.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's a card I'd probably shop around on. I mean, part of what you need to do, whether you want to buy it raw or graded, if you want to buy it graded, then you need to determine, what grade you're looking at or what range, 3, 4, 7, 8. I don't want to speak for you, whatever that may be. And then once you kind of got that, then you can kind of come up with, hey, I'd like to get it, in this kind of price range if possible. And that doesn't mean even if you see one and the price isn't too bad and it's you can still shop around. The other thing you can do, listen, I'm a dealer. I don't set up at the National, but I am a dealer. You can also haggle with the dealer, right? You can say, hey, would you take this, or could you do a little bit better? Worst thing they can say, Dave, is no, right? Or
Right.
split the difference in some cases, which is something sort of I like to do when I can. So there's all sorts of strategies. Obviously, if it's like you mentioned, a card maybe where there's number to 5, let's say, you probably can get away with that more on a card that doesn't fall into that category. But it doesn't hurt to sort of bargain. Worst thing you'll get is a no, and then you kind of know where you are, where you stand.
Sure. So David, who is at mostly 90s basketball cards, he wrote, quote, "Cash is king" is a phrase I hear frequently, which makes sense. If I see a card I really want, I'd rather be able to negotiate the price and buy it than try and work out a trade with my cards that the dealer may or may not be interested in. I know there are the multiple trade nights going on there, but is there also a lot of trading going on the floor, or is it just so hectic that the dealers can't quite focus the way they might want to?
It really depends on the dealer itself. Some dealers they're there. They just, they'll tell you, hey, I gotta, cost me a lot to set up here, cost me a lot to get here. I'm just selling right now. Others will have signs out. You'll see them that say buy, sell, trade. So you kind of know where that dealer comes in at. So there's no set. Every dealer is different, just like the inventory they might carry, right? Some dealers are strictly vintage, some are strictly modern or ultra modern, and then some kind of cover both aspects. So it really depends, on the dealer itself. I think if you ask me what percentage would consider a trade, especially if it's a trade and cash type of deal, I think a majority of them.
Hmm.
If it's just strictly trading, that percentage will get lower. I've heard dealers. When I go to the National, I usually just any cards I buy, I just buy. I don't really bring much to be honest with you, Dave. But I've heard a dealer tell another customer, while I was sort of at that table, like they asked, hey, would you trade this for that? And I'm not saying it was a super polite comment, but I've heard a dealer say, hey, I can't pay for my table by giving the promoter trading for my table, so I can't just trade. If you want to do a cash and trade deal, I'm open to that, but as far as a strictly trade, no. But trading cards for cards goes on at every show, not just the National. So it's not off the table, but some dealers won't really consider that. Again, it's an individual dealer type of question.
Gotcha. Have you ever done the autograph thing while you're there?
No, I do have some autographed memorabilia, but I've never at the National. Those lines can get long, and there's nothing. It's a great opportunity to meet some great athletes, celebrities. So I'm not trying to be disparaging, but some of those lines can be 3-4 hours long, and that's going to cut into your browsing time. So I know you can get if meeting the athlete or celebrity is not of utmost importance to you, you can also sort of pay and get that autograph and the certification and not cut into your browsing time. But I think we all can agree, like there's nothing that can replace actually seeing an athlete sign your item. I mean, if it's a choice between the two, I guess it's how much you value time. If you're going to be there 4 or 5 days and there's just one particular player, that you got to meet, it's not a big deal. But if your time is more limited, that's where you have to determine those sort of things.
Yeah, and that question came from Mark, who is MJS_sports cards, and he was asking exactly what you answered, which is, how much of my time do I really want to give up standing in line?
It's tough. It's tough. I'm not. I don't want to say I'm not an autograph guy because that's not true. But when I go to the National, I'll look at who's signing there, just more out of curiosity. But as far as experience at the National, waiting in line, I've never done that at this point.
Yeah. So, are you flying into Chicago?
I am flying. Yep.
And so, did you drive to AC last year?
I did, and it'll be in Cleveland next year. So I'll drive next year to Cleveland, but Chicago's just a little too far for the drive. And the older I get, Dave, the more the task driving becomes. I'm getting old.
Oh, sure. Well, that leads to the question from Matt at 1956 Top Sky. And he says, well, the only outstanding question I have is, what's the parking situation? So when you were pulling into Atlantic City, was there traffic? Did you get there early? What was that like for you?
Yeah, you want to get to the show early. I mean, I have a media pass, so I can get in the show 30 minutes, and I'm just being honest, I'm not, before everyone else. So I'll get there earlier. So parking's never too bad. One word of advice, if you're attending, as non-media, which is most people, frankly, buy the VIP ticket. I believe that gets you parking is included with that, and then it's one less thing for you to worry about. You already sort of have your parking covered. But if you're not getting there when the show starts on a fairly busy day, you may have to expect to drive around to sort of either find a spot or wait till someone else kind of leaves and jump in. I know there was one day we didn't get to the show as early as we were planning last year, and this is Atlantic City, Dave, and we had to drive a little bit to get a spot. It wasn't terrible. I don't want to, but it's kind of par for the course.
Yeah, I've been thinking about. I used to live in Chicago for about 10, 12 years, and I've been thinking about just parking about 5 miles away and just Ubering it the rest of the way. And
Not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. I think if you go early enough, you should be okay. But if you know what I mean, if you're running a little bit behind schedule, which happens to the best of us, it's not. I wouldn't say it's a bad idea. Chicago's going to be, I think, more attended than Atlantic City. I've heard predictions in the 120K. I've heard Ray Schulte on my show himself, who pretty much is does a lot of the logistics. Think it could be a record-setting show, especially modern day. So just keep those things in mind. Sort of having a game plan. The earlier you can get there, even if you can get there even early, even before the doors open, and especially if you're with people, you can maybe grab some breakfast or even just wait outside. Time isn't bad. Waiting isn't bad when you got 3 or 4 people you're talking to. It's a little bit different when you're maybe by yourself and those minutes go a little bit slower when you keep looking at your watch and it feels like it's 10 minutes later and you're looking, it's 2 minutes later, like, holy smokes. So if you're with a group of people, waiting isn't as bad as if you're not. And so that's a factor too. The earlier you can get there and sort of beat the main traffic, that's your best bet. And there's stuff around the Donald Stevens Convention Center, Dave, that even if you were early, if like you park, got a nice spot, you're there early, you can do a few things before the doors even open, but you already got your parking spot.
it seems, and you brought it up a couple of times, and other shows have mentioned it as well. Just being able to visit with friends and to socialize and grab a drink or breakfast or a cigar or something. That just seems to be what this is really about. And sure, there might be some fantastic cards, but this is a chance to see that we've got friends and we're not alone in this thing and just to hang out.
To me, the hobby is a fraternity. I know I talked with you before we were recording about podcasting and podcasters. I look at that as a fraternity, right? We all have that passion about the cardboard and chrome. We're all in this, for similar reasons. Maybe not exactly the same, but very similar. And so that's always nice when you're with ilk-minded people. And it's I enjoy talking to people. It's I've heard people call it the hobby family reunion, seeing people again. You circle that week every year. It's pretty much the same week on the calendar. We're very, very close to it. And you circle that week and you know you're going to see someone again. Or maybe someone for the first time that you've gotten to know over the course of the year in an online fashion. And I enjoy talking, going. We set up some dinners during the week, and it's a great opportunity kind of to catch up, and not even always about cards, right? If you're friends with someone, you care about someone, you want to know about how's life going, what else is going on. Cards, I'm sure, will come up, but it's more than just the cards too, right? So the tagline for my shows, the hobbies, the people, the stories behind the cards, right? Where I got this card, what year it was, what national. Sometimes you remember who you bought it from if you maybe have that sort of relationship. So all those great stories and memories you can make. And the national's the perfect week to really make those. You take pictures with all your friends and you look back and about this time I start actually posting pictures from last year's national, saying, "Hey, I'm looking forward to this again," and counting the days down. And the minute this show's over, we'll be counting the days to the next one. It'll be 364 to Cleveland, right? And it's a vacation. For people who collect, it's a hobby vacation, right? We're doing something we enjoy. It's 5 to 6 days, hopefully for most, or whatever it might be, right? Even if it's one or two, we look forward to it every year. It's an event. I try to attend. God willing, every year it comes up. And the nice thing, it's the same week, so it's easy to tell an employer, "Hey, this week every year is I do pretty much the same thing." So, and kind of build it in there.
What you said, it made me think of, I think it was Ryan from Card Collector 2 on his show last year, right after National. He said, "We are just 51 weeks away from the next National."
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's you start counting the days down, and it's fun, and I don't count them down. You kind of do. I mean, I was tongue in cheek, but you get 3, 4 months out, you start looking at the calendar and saying, "Hey, we're in double digits now. It's not 100 days; it's 99, and it's double digit." And that's when, for me, that's when I actually one of the tips I do is I actually slow my buying down and kind of start saving up some of that money to bring. That's just how I do it.
About
But
when? When do you think you start slowing down your buying?
about 90 days out. I'm not saying that, and I'm not saying I'm not buying cards, Dave. I don't want to be disingenuous. I'm not buying cards. I'll put it this way, of significant value. I might be buying 10, 20, $25 cards, but 3 or 4 figures. I'm probably waiting to the national and sort of just putting that money aside to plan on spending for those 4 or 5 days that I'm wherever it is. In this case, Chicago.
Okay. I want to back up a little bit to the idea of making plans and seeing friends. And Austin, who's at Carlson_cards, he has a fantastic new podcast. He's a planner, and he's talked about how he's made this list of the cards that he wants to get, and he's trying to make deals ahead of time. But when it comes to the social side of it, his question is not so much a question as what he's thinking about, which is food logistics, strategy for when you first walk into the door on Wednesday night, how to best meet up with others. For example, do you say, "Hey, let's meet up at booth whatever at this time," or do you have to be even more meticulous with trying to make plans?
For me, you can again, hopefully the Wi-Fi is better, but you can obviously text. You should probably check your phone, every 30 minutes, see if you got any messages from friends. There are places in the show that you can make plans to take a break, take a load off, sit down. VIP lounge. There are corners, quiet corners where you can meet. I'm a dinner guy, so I don't. You wouldn't know it by looking at me that I skip lunch at the National, but during the day, I have a backpack. All you'd find in my backpack as far as food goes is like some beef jerky, maybe some trail mix or a granola bar. So I kind of bypass lunch because I'm trying to maximize my time. I don't really want to take an hour off the show floor to wait in line or sit down and eat a big lunch. Plus, what happens when you eat a big lunch? For most people, right, get a little logy, a little tired. So I'm more like protein on the go, something I can like go off in a quiet corner, pull out some couple pieces of jerky, eat those, get right back in there, and then I make up for that at dinner time. When we have for me, we have a couple dinners planned. I'm part of Hobby News Daily, so we have a Hobby News Daily dinner like with reservations. Hobby Hotline's another show I do, and we have reservations. And I mean, even if I'm not just those are shows, but you can just make dinner plans with anybody. Your four buddies. Hey, we're going to the Park Tavern. We're going to the Murray Brothers. We're going to Harry Carey's. If you can do that ahead of time, like I already know, here we are, a few weeks away, but we have reservations. I made reservations a couple weeks ago for that stuff. So, and it's easier, obviously. The further out you can make those reservations, the easier it is to get those tables and lock in those reservations. So if you know your crew and hey, let's do Thursday or Saturday or whatever day you agree on, you can reserve those tables. Restaurants will stay open a little bit later when the convention's in town, but definitely call ahead. And especially if you have a big party, like for us, it's going to be 10 or 12 people attending these dinners, and so to walk into a restaurant on the day of with 10 or 12 people, they're going to probably turn you away unless you get very, very fortunate or someone else canceled, let's say. So but even a party 3, 4, 5, 6, if you can make reservations, if like this is what we're doing, it's a great opportunity to kind of let your hair down, your feet, get off your feet. And like for me, skipping lunch, I'm rearing to go at dinner. I make up for that skip lunch. Full disclosure, at dinner time for sure, as you can, anyone that knows me or seen me can attest. So.
I gotta say, I think what I'm most impressed by so far is your ability to start scaling back 90 days out. That was the plan for me, and then I just have no willpower.
It's tough. It's tough. I didn't say it was easy. Matter of fact, I didn't do it this year. I kind of broke my own rule. I acquired one of the cards on that national list was a Hank Aaron rookie card that was on my list, and my plan was to hopefully get it at the national. And my friend Danny Black sent me a link to an auction, and I'm like, man, I'm really shouldn't even be looking at this, man. I'm kind of in shutdown mode. He goes, right now, man, it's a steal. And I just said, all right, I'm going to put one bid. And I fully expected Dave, someone to come over the top and outbid me and not get it. And it'd still be on my list at the National. And somehow, some way, don't ask me how, I don't have a real good explanation. My bid held up surprisingly and shockingly. And so obviously, I'm a man of my word. I got to honor my bid. And so that was about 85 days left. So I technically broke it. I mean, it wasn't like I did it, 30 days out, but it wasn't really my plan. It just happened to work out that way.
Well, if you can get a deal on a rookie card of a player the likes of Hank Aaron,
Yeah.
I don't care if it's 30 seconds out. You just got to go for it.
That's kind of, I was shocked. I was shocked for how it didn't get raised. And, I guess it was meant to be, but did it cut into a little bit of my spending money? For sure. But I guess in a sense you can count that as one of the cards that was on the list. I might not have got it at the National itself. So, I kind of go in with 5 or 6 cards with the goal to get 2. If I get 3, that's a great show. If I get 2, that's my goal. If I get 1, either the prices weren't great or I just didn't do a good job finding the deals. That one's I'll kind of blame myself. So that's just kind of how I look at it.
So I'm curious with the Aaron already in the bank there, what is something that you're looking for?
So I'm a vintage guy now. I will throw some modern cards. I'll throw some wild cards in the mix, and I'm not a secretive guy. There's plenty of there's nothing that's like super rare or you know what I mean, where someone's gonna get the only copy. I'm not in that stratosphere. But you mentioned one yourself. I don't have a Bob Gibson that's in the mix. Stan Musial 48 Leaf, Clemente. A Clemente rookie's on the list. A modern card, or modern, especially compared to what I just mentioned, is a Connor McDavid Young Guns. I like to acquire, and Kaline Banks rookies, Tom Seaver. I know there's more than 6. So what I need to do as we get even closer is really kind of get that to 5 or 6 top 5 or 6, with even the others still sort of being on the fringe. Where if I can't get, I'm not doing a good job on the first 5 or 6, you kind of have like a plan B, maybe on the other 4 or 5 that aren't in the top 5 or 6. So I think one of the worst things you could do, I'm speaking for myself, is, and you should have fun no matter what. We talked about meeting people and hanging out with friends, but you go to a card show like that, you want to buy something, right? Or, so last year I had to wait till the last day to buy anything of significance, and there were points there, Dave, where I'm like, I might not walk out of here with anything off my target list, which still would have been a great show, still would have had a fun, no regrets, but I was got lucky kind of at the last day that I was there, which was Saturday.
It reminds me, I've heard 2 separate things about whether it's true or not, about whether costs or whether dealers start trying to are more willing to accept somewhat lower prices as the show goes on. I've heard yes, they do. It's just sort of the natural tendency of attrition. Saturday and especially Sunday, they might take a certain percentage off. But then I heard somebody else make a really good point. I forget who it was. It might have been Dave at Extraordinary Cards. He might have said, no, not necessarily, because a week later they're just going to go to another show, and
Good point.
and they don't necessarily need to drop it down. So in your experience, is there that natural slide at all, or no?
And Dave's not wrong. The one, dealers who do shows like 3 out of 4 weekends, let's say, they're probably not going to have 50% off sign on Sunday, right? But there are those dealers that the Nationals like their big show, right? And so if Sunday rolls around and it's not been a great show for that particular dealer, Sunday's a great day to pick up some steals and deals. Saturday, not so much. Saturday is generally the busiest day of the show. The dealers know it. People attending know it. It's going to be harder to find a deal, in my opinion. Not impossible. The couple cards I bought last year, and my last day there was a Saturday. But you're going to have to negotiate, and so someone may not have a sign on their table as a dealer, like 25% off or 50% off, but that doesn't mean you can't sort of negotiate those terms as well. So it doesn't hurt to ask. The worst thing a dealer can tell you is, sorry, I can't do that, or I can't do that, but I can do this. And maybe you can get that happy medium. If you're there Sunday, and Sunday thins out, Sunday definitely thins out. You're going to have more room to move. It's going to be less traffic. The dealers know it. That's where you'll see those signs, anything on this table, 50% off. You'll see some dealers put a sign that says everything in this showcase, $25,000, $10,000, whatever the case may be. So Sunday's your best deal, but best deal day. But that's the risk you take if you wait to that last day. If especially if it's a card you're looking for that isn't at one of those tables offering like a clearance sale like that.
Great. Well, John, as we wind down, is there anything else that if you saw some first timer headed out the door that you would yell one last thing to them, one last piece of advice? What would you say as they head to their first national?
Have fun. 2 words. I'm going to say it more than 2 words, but the 2 words is have fun. It's a great event, great people that you're gonna have people, your friends there, people you like, people whether it be in content creation or just collecting buddies. Make the best time that you can, no matter how many days you're there. 1, 2, 5, 6. It's a great. The show is kind of what you make it. Kind of sort of have a game plan, but at the end of the day, right? What do we travel and what do we go to these events for? To have fun, to create memories, and that's the bottom line.
John, thanks so much. Take care, and really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me, Dave. This was fun.
The Shallow End is a Wolfpack Network podcast. The song is Legendary by Black Box. Black Box, play us out.